Can you say today that this is not a prelude to a North American Union similar to a European Union? Are there plans to build some kind of superhighway connecting all three countries?
If you've been in politics as long as I have, you get used to that kind of technique where you lay out a conspiracy and then force people to try to prove it doesn't exist.
And I guess I've read some things from my opposition in Canada. I'm not sure these are generally expressed concerns, but a couple of my opposition leaders have speculated on massive water diversions and superhighways to the continent, maybe interplanetary, I'm not sure as well.
Well, the politicians laugh it off, and if you ask anybody in a position of authority in Washington about the idea that there's a plan well underway to create a North American Union along the lines of the European Union, which would be composed, among other things, of a great big superhighway system that would connect all three countries. In fact, there you see a map extrapolating from some information that the people who believe in this. It's a fairly widely believed theory, believe it or not, particularly on the American right, that President Bush and the leaders of the foreign policy establishment want to see these three countries, the United States, Canada, and Mexico, joined and governed ultimately by a super government that would be able to overrule the sovereign governments of each of those countries in certain key matters related to trade and who knows what else. The literature on it is fairly extensive. But is there any truth to it, Charles?
You know, I love this stuff because if you ever doubt your own sanity, all you have to do is read this stuff and you know that you're okay. Look, part of this great conspiracy is recent evidence that the governor of Texas, who's a Republican, who supports this highway from Laredo into Oklahoma, was recently at the Bilderberg Conference, which is supposedly one of these trilateral conferences involving financiers who want to globalize the world and pull strings. But let me tell you, I've spoken at a Bilderberg conference, as has George Will and Paul Gigot, and I can assure you that Gigot and Will and I are not three amigos who are going to order in black helicopters to force Americans to watch hockey on Monday nights and soccer on Sundays. The reason the Bilderberg conference is secret is because its proceedings are so dull that if the transcripts were ever published, nobody would ever attend. What's happening here is that the president organized a meeting a few years ago of the leaders of Mexico and Canada to work out stuff like how to regulate the borders in terms of terrorism or pandemics, or how much pesticide you can have on a cabbage. This is the piddling stuff that these committee are involved in. And anybody who believes it's about a great European or North American union is in the league of people who believe that Elvis is still alive.
Well, there are a lot of those.
Juan,
yes, that's true.
What do you think of this?
Oh, Elvis is alive. I think that. No,
Help me out here.
No, I think, look, it seems to me that it's in our interest to work with our neighbors, no question. And I think we should be doing more work with our neighbors in terms of particularly protecting our borders if you're concerned about terrorism. So
you get around town, do you hear anybody proposing this idea, North America?
No, in fact, that map that you showed, as Charles was saying, there's some reality to the highway from Mexico going up through Texas into Oklahoma, but there's no reality to those red veins at the northern part. There's just no reality to it yet.
Fred?
Well, of course, Charles would deny, having been to the Bilderberg event, that there was nothing going on there. But I don't know. I mean, they always deny it, right? Brett, the only person I've heard about this North American Union from so far is you.
Well,
not from Brett Baer. How did Brett Baer not break into laughter?
Well, he did it. Look, he was trying to keep a straight face, but you can tell that both the leaders have heard about Howard Phillips, right, who was.
Oh, come on now, look. Look, this strain has been in American politics for years and years. Remember, it used to be fear of one world government. Our sovereignty was going to be handed over to one world government.
Well,
then the UN turned out to be so pathetic that nobody would believe that. So now they've got the new boogeyman is this North American Union. It's not going to happen. I mean, that's ludicrous. I mean, there is a particular reason for the origin of the European Union. Those were countries that were fighting wars against each other, and that would and one of the reasons to have the EU was to have peace.
That's it for the panel, folks, but stay tuned to find out the most effective way a TV broadcaster can deal with technical problems. We'll show it to you next.